section we're going to look at various different ways we can work with files, creating files, saving to different types of file, sharing those files, opening files, and understanding workbook structure a little bit more. So let's start off by creating a file. At the moment I already have a file open, and that is simply because Excel loads a new file by default whenever you open the application. But let's go ahead and create a new one. To do that, because I'm working with files, I'm going to click on the File menu, and from within the File menu I'm going to click on New. I can now see various different options for creating different types of files. But really there's just two things going on within this menu area. I can either create a blank workbook or I can load a template. These are effectively just different templates for accomplishing different things. The purpose of these templates is to give you a pre-constructed workbook that you can fill in with your own data, allowing you to not necessarily create all your tables, graphs and charts, use charts that are already created and simply fill in your own data. So for the most part we will simply want to just create a new blank document and populate it from scratch ourselves. So let's double click on blank workbook and you'll see a new workbook is created. Aside from the animation, the only real way I know that a new workbook is created is that I have a new workbook name. In this top section here we see we're now workbook 2, whereas before it was book 1. Another way I can create a new workbook is from the quick access toolbar. So now you see we've created another workbook. We're on to book 4. The final way we can create a new workbook is by using the shortcut Control and N, or Control and New if you like. And that concludes creating new workbooks. Next up we're going to look at saving our files. With a newly created workbook such as this workbook, book 6, Excel hasn't actually decided where it's going to be saved. Currently it's saved in some temporary folder within the Excel program folder. So we need to actually decide where we want to store this workbook so we can use it at a later date. To access this file, command save, we're going to go into the file menu again. So because this workbook has never been saved before, I'm going to be using the save as. I could try and use the save immediately, but Excel will just divert me into the Save As menu. Why? Because it wants me to pick a location where it wants me to save that document. So I can now choose the different locations I can save the document. I can save it into my SkyDrive here for Learning Fever, or I can save it onto a place within the computer. Let's just save it into somewhere within this computer, and let's pick the desktop. From here I'm just going to save this book 6. I could rename it as new saved book and hit save. The other thing to notice while we are using save is there are other ways we can save our document. There are different saving formats. So I'm going to take the same workbook again and I'm going to save as a different format. I'm going to choose the desktop. And we are in the same dialog box as we had before. But now I want to draw your attention to the Save As type. By default, Excel is going to pick Standard Excel Workbook, the format known as XLSX. But I can also save it as a whole myriad of different file types. Common ones we might use is CSV, macro-enabled workbooks, and the one I'm going to choose for this experiment, which is PDF. So let's try and do a save as PDF. Please note that I have typed some text into the sheet. The main reason for this is Excel won't allow me to generate a blank PDF. Let's go ahead and save that document. As we can see, the print file, the demo print file that we just created in Excel has now been opened as a PDF document. So it's useful to know about these options for saving Excel in different formats. PDF is a very elegant way of saving information, particularly graphical information, in a condensed and locked format. By locked, I mean that PDFs cannot be easily edited unless you have specialist software, so it doesn't allow people to manipulate your data. We also have the ability with Excel 2013 to save to the cloud. So with my Save As command again, instead of saving onto the desktop, this time I'm going to save into my SkyDrive. So I click on my SkyDrive folder, and then I can just click into the main SkyDrive folder that has been created. Here are my default folders found within SkyDrive, and I'm just going to save this new workbook into Documents. So I'll double click into Documents like I would with any normal Windows folder, and I can save my workbook there. Notice this bar in the bottom was just demonstrating that it was uploading the document to SkyDrive. Note that this document is now saved in the cloud. We have a copy saved to the desktop, but the current copy that I am working on here is actually stored on the internet. Now that we've saved our document into the cloud, we can access various other options, and those are the sharing options. So if I move down through my file options, I can click on Share. Because this version of Excel has been connected to a SkyDrive account, which we will examine in more detail later, it means that I have various sharing options. So using the invite people, I can simply type in people's email addresses and they will receive the document. I type in an email address, I can add a personal message, and then I can share the document with them. That document has now been shared with that person. I can also share by using or generating a Get a Sharing link. From using the Get a Sharing link menu, I can create two types of link. I can create a viewing link, create link. This viewing link will effectively let anyone who receives the link be able to view the document I've just created. However, they will not be able to edit the contents of the document or save any changes. I can also create an edit link, which will give the recipient of this link the ability to view and edit and save my document. So both of these links can be useful and appropriate for different situations. With this link, you would simply copy the entire URL, right-click, copy, and paste it into an email. Once you email that link to a friend or colleague, they will be able to click on the hyperlink, and this Excel document will open either in their own version of Excel 2013, or it will open in a web browser, allowing them to view the file online. There's also some other sharing options within Excel 2013. You can post to a social network. It's not entirely clear to me why you would want to post your Excel files onto Facebook, but Excel has given you that option. Perhaps a more useful option would be to post to a social network such as LinkedIn, which is designed for professional interactions. Also within the sharing area, you can also share via email. This gives us some of the traditional ways of sharing a workbook. We can simply create an attachment and save our file by sending it as an attachment. We can also send a sharing link. This is very much the same functionality as we've seen with the Get Sharing link. The difference being that if I click the Send a Link here, this will automatically open in Microsoft Outlook or whatever the default mail client is and generate the email with the link within it. I also have a Send as PDF option. This is an interesting option in that it effectively exports the file to a PDF and then attaches that exported file to an email. Again, it can be very useful if you want to send a very lightweight version of your Excel workbook. We have another export option here, which is an XPS file. This is similar to PDF, but a different format. And finally, we can send over the internet as an internet fax. But it is worth understanding that to be able to do that, you will need a fax service provider. That covers sharing of workbook files. Next, let's move on to opening a file. From the File menu, I can come down to my Open file, and within Open I can access any of the different areas that I may have saved work to. That might be on a SkyDrive location, or on my computer, or some other area such as an SharePoint server. At the moment, the accounts that we have loaded here is simply the computer and the Learning Fever SkyDrive. So let's try and load a file from my computer first of all, and I know that I have saved a file to the desktop. And here we see the new saved workbook that I just created earlier. I simply click on the file and then click Open. Sure enough, my file is loaded from the hard drive. Let's close that file now simply by pressing the little X in the top corner. Let's try opening one of the files we've saved to SkyDrive. Using the File menu again, I'll go to Open. I'll click into my Learning Fever, and within this drive I'm going to look into the Documents folder. There's a brief delay while it accesses the Microsoft Cloud, and then sure enough I can see the workbook that I saved in here earlier. I can click on the file and click Open. Notice that Excel tells me I'm downloading a file from the internet. Here is my file retrieved from the cloud. So to cover off this topic, we're going to finish by looking at file structure. What are the components that we can find within an Excel workbook? Well, the first thing that we will find within an Excel workbook is a worksheet. So here you can see I have 3 sheets in my current workbook. And within the worksheets, of which there can be 1, 2, 3 or hundreds, I can find a variety of different types of information. I can find standard text data. So to examine this text data, I'm going to click into the cell, and I can see from looking in the formula bar that what is contained in that cell is simply text. Now, on top of my text, there's other elements I can add into the Excel worksheet, and that is formatting. So this cell here not only contains text, but it also contains formatting. And if you think about it that way, it may well be helpful. You're effectively layering different types of properties and objects and data into your worksheet. So we've looked at plain text, we've looked at formatted text. We'll also encounter formulas. If I click into this cell, I will see that there is an equal sign and there is what we call a cell reference. Now don't worry, we'll come onto this in much more detail in a minute, but I'm just covering some of the different types of things we can encounter in a workbook. Some of the other things we may encounter is numbers. Now, numbers are entered in the same way as text, but it's worth knowing that they are treated differently by Excel in a number of different ways. So as well as having text, formatting and formulas, we can also have numbers, and we can also have this adorable koala picture here. We can also have word art, which is similar to other Microsoft packages such as Word and PowerPoint. We can insert equations and pie charts and all kinds of other different types of charts. So just to recap, we have the workbook, which is at file level. We have the worksheets, which sit within the workbook. And within each worksheet, we can have lots of different types of data, such as text, formatting, numbers, charts, pictures, word art, and many, many other objects.